Welcome back, or welcome if you're new. It's really good to see you today. My name is Vix and this is my channel, Goddess of Gore, where I like to talk about horror, thriller, fantasy and sci-fi books. Today I have an impromptu little video and a change to my original plans for this week's uploads because I want to tell you about the books that are up for an award tomorrow in the Bram Stoker Award 2023 category of Superior Achievement in a Novel. So, let's see who's a nominee, shall we? On Saturday evening in Pittsburgh, the Bram Stoker Award ceremony will be handing out a snazzy little haunted house ornament to one lucky, talented author, as well as the notoriety of being one of a few who have received an award since 1988. The awards itself, obviously named after the author of Dracula, appropriately gives out 13 statues in categories ranging from Best Novel, Poetry and Screenplay that were all written in 2022. Although I'm not entirely sure if it's the 1st of January to the 31st of December or whether there's a different date cut off, but let's assume it's January to December, shall we? I didn't do my research. What makes these Stokers so special is that this is one of only a couple of awards that are purely in the horror genre, and this is a jury of the Horror Writers Association. What is the association? Well, it's a bunch of over 1,000 writers and publishers from around the world who was formed during the heady, romantic period of the 1980s, who are all dedicated to the darker side of literature. Now, I will say there is a downside to the Stoker's rules about the book choices, and that's that the books have to have been written in the English language first, so there's no translated works at all. I think this is a shame, as there are many excellent horror novels that have been translated into English, and I believe that the Horror Writers Association should consider adding a category for translated works, and this would allow them to recognise the work of talented authors from all over the world. So as I said, I'm here to talk about the books in the Superior Achievement in a Novel category, but what are the other categories? Well, in order to get away from the usual "this is the best of something" that awards are usually placed under, the Stokers use the phrase superior achievements instead. So please assume that the wording superior achievement is in front of all of these categories. So they are superior achievement in a first novel, in a middle grade novel, in a graphic novel, in a YA novel, long fiction, short fiction, fiction collection, screenplay, poetry collection, anthology, non-fiction, and finally short non-fiction. Phew, it's going to be a long night in Pittsburgh tomorrow, I can tell you. Now, obviously I would have liked to have read everything up for the whole awards, but I really didn't think about this until May, so I just picked one category, and that was the category of Superior Achievement in a Novel, and the nominees for that are Gabino Iglesias for The Devil Takes You Home, Alma Katsu for The Fervor, Gwendolyn Kiste for Reluctant Immortals, Josh Malerman for Daphne, and Catriona Award for Sundial. So, briefly, what were the books about? The Devil Takes You Home by Gabino Iglesias is about a man called Mario who loses his family and falls down the hole of drugs and crime to dull his grief and the massive build-up of money debts. His best friend, who is a long-term drug addict, comes up with the amazing plan of how to never have to worry about money again, and how they'll all ride off into the sunset and live happily ever after. But if you know anything about long-time hard drug users in fiction, you'll most likely know that any harebrained scheme of theirs is probably not going to go according to plan at all, and it's not going to be okay. Nothing could have possibly prepared me for this wild ride that this book was going to be. It went to some pretty dark places, but what I really enjoyed was the combination of horror, violence and crime, folklore and anxiety-inducing scenarios. Gabino's writing in this book is just glorious and beautiful, and just the kind of style that works for me. The use of the Spanish-Mexican language in this book was just brilliant, and the way it just translated just a tiny bit of the wording, I found this completely fascinating. I found myself translating the whole conversations myself, so I got the true tale, which I didn't mind doing at all. I do have a slight basic level of reading Spanish, but I did use Google Translate for the slang words and such. This was an unnecessary choice on my part because, as I said, the gist of the Mexican conversations in this book were written in English. But it was a nice touch of authenticity, I thought. This was a fantastic horror novel that I think is an excellent choice for this award. The Fervor by Alma Katsu. Now this one is a bit of a strange choice. Like, it's not been very well received in the reviews I've seen with the horror booktubers I follow, and the ratings on review sites are very hit and miss, so the fact that it's here is a curious one for me. I thought that although the story itself was of no interest to me whatsoever, it seemed to have bewitched me. I couldn't stop reading it. I wanted to know what this virus was that was spreading throughout America during 1944, supposedly started by the Japanese who had been emigrating to America. Obviously, being from England, I was not taught much American history in school, so I had no idea that during World War II and Pearl Harbor, the Japanese were put in some kind of encampment in case they were spies, and generally treated very poorly by racists and bigots during that time, and propaganda was handed out to the general public willy-nilly. The Japanese folklore spider demon Jorogumo is not in this book very much at all, and as a consequence I didn't think this book is necessarily horror. I'd have put it at 98% historical fiction with the merest, and I'm being generous, a 2% of spookiness. It didn't impress me, but I will be talking about this a little bit more in next week's wrap-up, since I've just literally last night finished it. The Reluctant Immortals by Gwendolyn Kiste. Again, I'm not going to say too much about this because I will be reviewing it properly in next week's wrap-up. So, while Gwendolyn's writing is absolutely amazing, I'm not sure the book as a story is quite horror award winning here. The premise was very promising. Two underhyped women of horror literature, Lucy Westenra from Dracula and Bertha Mason, the first wife, aka the mad woman in the attic from Jane Eyre, are immortals in the 1960s Hollywood, haunted literally by their past lovers Dracula and Mr. Rochester, who simply will not let them go. Lucy battles with her bloodthirst, and well, I'm not even sure what her role in the book was. This is another hit and miss in the reviews, and in my own opinion, I'm not sure if it was even horror, much like the previous one. More of a light-hearted general fiction book, in my opinion. And one of my notes on this book was that it could have been set anywhere during any era and the story would have stayed the same. The fact that it was the 1960s in Hollywood was completely irrelevant. Daphne by Josh Malerman. This was a fun urban legend slasher book about Kit, who is the star of the school basketball team, who on the night before the final match of the season hears the urban legend of Daphne, who was a giant in both stature and the school basketball team. The legend is that she haunts the team, seeking revenge for her bullies who caused her death. Now, as soon as Kit hears the legend, she starts to see Daphne everywhere, and before long the team starts getting killed off in a wonderful, epic slasher film style that I think made this book. It reminded me so much of the likes of Nightmare on Elm Street and the urban legend of Bloody Mary. And then Sundial by Catriona Award. Again, this is another book that defied my expectations, as in I wasn't expecting much, but was astounded by what I actually got. This is a riveting psychological thriller that unravels the depths of a fractured marriage and a dysfunctional family. The journey of Rob, an English teacher and devoted mother of 2 daughters, beneath the facade of a seemingly charming husband, a deplorable bully lurks, concealing his explosive temper. Rob's apprehension intensifies when her eldest daughter manifests unsettling behaviours such as collecting animal bones and engaging in eerie conversations with apparently no one. The straw that breaks the camel's back is when there is a real threat to her younger daughter Annie, and Rob's maternal instincts propel her into action. Determined to come clean about her own sinister secrets that shroud their family's past and to keep her daughters safe, Rob goes to Sundial, her ancestral home, steeped in haunting mystery, in a bid to win Callie's trust and open up about what's happening with her. Rob unveils the chilling tale of their lineage and where darkness and real tragedy come out over one night. So that's the books. What do I want to win? Well, I think we can guess from those descriptions that 3 out of the 5 are better than the others. So mainly it's a toss-up between The Devil Takes You Home, Daphne and Sundial. But in my opinion, Gabino Iglesias should win. But my choices are never right, so who do I think will win? I think maybe Catriona Award will win with Sundial on the night. Which books do you think should win out of those 5 titles? How many of them have you read and how many did you enjoy? Do you even think that these 5 should be up for an award? And if not, what should have been in this category instead? Let me know in the comments. I will leave you, as always, with a quote from one of the books I've mentioned today. I don't know what it's like for other people, but love and nausea are often indistinguishable to me. Make some good book choices this week, my friends, and I hope to see you all again soon. Until next time, bye bye.